Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to BNN. So today we're going to be talking about Professor Ransford Gyampo and his involvement in the Sex for Grade story and his response to this whole scandal. For those of you who have already seen the documentary, you can skip ahead. Time codes are shown down here, and I will also include time codes in the pinned comment. So let's roll the clip.
Of all the lecturers in the University of Ghana, one stands out for his power and influence. Political scientist and outspoken commentator, Professor Ransford Gyampo. He enjoys a great reputation as a teacher among his students. But he's also been at the center of allegations of sexual harassment. We sent an undercover journalist known as Abigail to meet him. Posing as a University of Ghana student from a poor background, she attended one of Gyampo's classes. He agreed to become her mentor. She wrote him essays to review, visited his office 3 times, and he gave her good feedback on her academic work.
So the German situation, academic freedom. So Google what we mean by academic freedom in the first place.
Not everything felt normal. Professor Gyampo wanted her to wear high heels in his office.
Thank you. What's the name of high heels?
And then, one Sunday afternoon, Abigail received a strange phone call from him.
Hello.
How are you?
Fine, thank you.
He began to tease her and accuse her of always being formal around him.
Formal. You want to talk about work, nothing else. It's sabudenche.
Abigail tried her best not to upset Gyampo, who became increasingly personal and said he wanted to come over to her house.
Who is not married and doesn't want a decent lady who is also caring? Who of them want?
She reminded him she was a student and told him she wasn't interested in a relationship.
Well, right now, that's why I'm not really interested.
But Professor Gyampo ignored this.
Oh, prepare your mind because I'll be coming very soon.
Eventually, Abigail managed to persuade him to meet in a public place, a mall, instead of her home later that evening. We knew we would have to be cautious. Long before Abigail met Professor Gyampo, we interviewed a number of his former students who alleged they had been sexually harassed by him. One of them, who we shall call Na, agreed to anonymously speak to us on camera.
So you need to build that and call them into squares. You can call the
Na told us she was sexually harassed twice by Gyampo. She alleges the second incident took place when she went to confront him about the first harassment.
I felt it was my responsibility to let him know that what he did wasn't okay with me. So I went to him. He apologized and he tried to console me, and in consoling me, he attempted touching me. I was dumbfounded. I just couldn't believe that a moment ago he was apologizing and the next moment he was on top of me trying to touch my breast, hold me, that kind of things.
She says her encounters with the professor and a past history of other abuse have left her traumatized.
It's difficult, and till today I can't sleep with my lights off. I get panic sometimes at night. It's not something you get over, especially when the person is protected and you never get justice for what happens to you.
Before Abigail reached the shopping mall, we knew Gyampo had already crossed red lines over the phone. But we wanted to be sure of his intentions towards his mentee, our reporter. Abigail showed me footage of their encounter. As soon as Gyampo arrived, he insisted on buying her shoes as she had reluctantly agreed to on the phone.
I want to buy something.
I told you right into so let me buy one. One for school, one for
I don't want inconvenience.
kissed violence in the phone.
Pardon?
Having kissed violence in the phone.
Have I ever been
Kissed violence in the phone.
We were just talking about shoes and killed violently. I was like, what is going on?
After that comment, Abigail felt it was better to just go and buy the shoes. Once in the shoe shop, Gyampo bought her heels.
Stop pushing yourself away. Don't ruin my life.
Pardon?
Don't ruin my life. Stop pushing yourself away.
I had literally seen him 4 times, and all of a sudden, marriage. The previous invitation.
Back in the restaurant, Abigail asked about internships, but Gyampo had something else in mind.
Just going to reach it. It's like when grow a bit fat for me. I feel like a money. I can fit to my own club.
Don't want me out.
Watching the footage, this didn't feel like a real marriage proposal. The professor laid out how Abigail would benefit from his support.
You can phone and tell me that someone says he wants to marry me after school. I push you to do national service, I push you to do masters.
But he seemed more interested in other things.
I grab you and kiss you and here. By the time I release you, see all the sadness you want. What else did you do at SSC? You prefer to school.
It's not true.
SSB and everything with the process.
Abigail was then pushed to have a relationship with him. After that, she rang the team and began to leave. But Gyampo made one last move.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Pardon?
Abigail did not hug him. After this meeting, she spoke to Professor Gyampo on the phone, and he told her it was okay that she didn't want to be his girlfriend, but she should continue to be mentored by him. Professor Gyampo vehemently denies sexually harassing Abigail or any of his students, telling us he treats them with respect, care, and genuine affection and has never been involved in sex for grades. He says several students have made false accusations against him in the past, all of whom he claims were discredited after he confronted them. He says the university has never investigated him for sexual harassment. He told us he never intended to harass Abigail, did not force or intimidate her, and never knew he had offended her. He further claims he was entrapped, which the BBC strongly refutes. Telling Abigail he could help her to gain funding for further studies is something he had done for others, he says, and he had no influence over her academic progress. He says he routinely commends students on their dress and shoes and refers to all his office assistants as wedded wives, saying calling Abigail his wedded wife was a joke.
After this documentary, Professor Gyampo took to Twitter and said he will sue the BBC for defamation as the evidence provided does not show any evidence of him exchanging grades for sex. In the wake of the documentary, some alleged victims of Professor Gyampo came out on Twitter and shared their stories, and here are the screenshots. But there are also other people who sided with Gyampo, and this prompted the hashtag #IStandWithGyampo, as people felt that the BBC did not give enough evidence to support the statement that he exchanged grades for sex. Professor Gyampo actually showed up to work the very next day. He went to teach a class, and there's this video circulating around of him crying in his class, and it was reported by a lot of media stations that he was crying out of shame. But someone on the Twitter thread mentioned that they are a student of his, and he was crying because of the immense support he received from his students. What do you guys think is the truth here? Gyampo continued to defend himself on Twitter, saying that he was only trying to build the self-esteem of this little girl, and that kissing part was entirely a joke. After this storybook, Professor Gyampo was also suspended from the University of Ghana to allow for investigation into his conduct, and which of note, he actually welcomed this move as saying he had nothing to hide, and he welcomed any inquiry into his behavior, saying that he has never been charged for sexual harassment and no student has ever come forward and he has never been investigated on this matter. Professor Gyampo went further and produced receipts of the letter which the BBC sent him on September 24th, stacking up numerous allegations and asking for his statement. And something of note, in the documentary, it was actually stated what the university policy is between teachers or lecturers dating their students, and I do not understand why. It's not just an outright policy, do not date any student, do not date someone you work with. I don't understand why the policy only covers that do not date a student if you're in a position to influence their career. It should be a blanket policy that don't date a student. After this documentary, Professor Gyampo has been going on a media tour to every TV station, telling his story and defending against the allegations leveled against him from this BBC documentary. And I've watched almost all of them, and in summary, Professor Gyampo literally just said he did nothing wrong. BBC is a tool of the West to disparage Africa, and that they are being paid by politicians to tarnish his name.
I'm sure you watched the video. Did you see anything about sexual abuse? I'm asking you.
What did you see?
I didn't see anything like that. I have not done anything like that. And let them know that if they are doing the bidding of their paymasters, I understand the game more than they do. About 2 weeks ago, BBC wrote to me that they have evidence that I'm doing sex for grades. And I said, I don't do that. I'm aware of my university's policies, and I know the kinds of things that I do and how I take politicians on. And so I'm particular and careful about some of these things. And so I wouldn't do such a thing. And they said that, well, they have an evidence to show that a lady visited me, and so I had some conversations with her, and they find the conversations between me and the lady to be inappropriate. And first of all, I asked, the lady was not my student. We had interacted on phone and WhatsApp for over 1 month, and we had established a certain kind of friendship that made us free to be talking about certain things, in very informal, manner. She wasn't my student. You see, strangely, everything that the lady said to me have been edited, and everything that I said is being played. So when they wrote to me, I also wrote to them, explaining the circumstances under which we had our conversations and all that. Not that, excuse me to say, I went to sleep with her, I went to fondle her, I went to touch her, I didn't do anything of that sort. Just our conversation. So I told them that we had established, you cannot pick our conversations out of context. We had established the kinds of things that she told me. I referred them, and these conversations were all held in public. There were some of them that were held in my office with my 4 assistants who were there. They are prepared to testify and to say whatever we discussed, which we all laugh about and all that. I've referred the BBC to go talk to them. They said they wouldn't. I've told them that if it is truly sexual harassment, then the person involved must be my student. They agree that the person was not my student. And so then where lies in the harassment, where I would be able to have the opportunity or I have the power to change the person's grades and all that. She's not even my student. And the other point I'm making is that if I have harassed somebody, why don't you want to use the sexual harassment? It's criminal. The university itself has got its own internal rules and committees that handle these things. So if BBC means well and they haven't been paid, I'm aware. I mean, I know I've received several messages, text messages, WhatsApp informations about politicians wanting to kill me, politicians wanting to bring me down, and doing all manner of things just to be able to call me into submission. And I am reliably informed that somebody has paid them to be doing this. Otherwise,
somebody paid the BBC.
Yeah, I'm telling you. Otherwise,
somebody who? I
don't know, but I'm sure somebody must have done that. Otherwise, what is the sense in this? When I'm referring you to the due processes, if I've really done something like this, why wouldn't you encourage the student to report to the university? So that the university invites me, I am here, the student is here, and then we talk about the matter. The student proves that I have done X, Y, Z, and then I explain myself. You are not willing to do that. You are not willing to report the matter to the police, but you are willing to encourage students of the university that should anything happen on campus, they should come to BBC rather to report and not to use the institutions that have been established locally. And yet you keep saying that we have weak institutions. If we have weak institutions, how do we strengthen them if we don't allow them to work?
In the video, you are seen saying that I'll kiss you, I'll marry you. You admit you did those, you said those things.
We had a certain informal relationships, conversation, and this is what obviously they have edited so much of the content. She was showing there was something on her phone. There was something on her phone that I chanced on it. I mean, she was on I don't know whether it's a movie, but somebody was, it's like a movie. And so I saw something like that. Have you ever been kissed violently before? And he said, oh, no. I said, okay. Then she was like, behaving like she was shy. I said, look, be free and be open because we are friends. If you don't take care, I'll kiss you violently so that your shyness will go away. And then we all laughed about it, and that is all.
Do you regret your relationship with her now that you know that she's not really who she claimed she was when she first met you?
No, I knew she wasn't my student, but I didn't know that she was sent to trap me or to set me up.
Now that you have this information.
Now that, yes, I mean, it's regrettable, and unfortunately for me, I pray it doesn't happen, but it's going to have a telling impact in the way I relate with everybody, including my students. Because there are people who come to you genuinely looking for information, looking for assistance. And if you don't take care, then you are going to say, everybody who comes to you, say, please go away.
So I want to ask my audience, who do you believe here? You can check out the rest of the video on CitiTV News. It's very interesting as Professor Gyampo really dove into the details of this story and explained his side of the story. Anyway, guys, that's all from me. I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye!